Before we begin, candidate Anthony Lewis has asked me to say a few words on his behalf, which all the other candidates are more than happy for me to do. As you may be aware, Anthony has aphasia, a speech and language disorder caused by a serious stroke 10 years ago. Anthony is taking a full part in the senatorial campaign, but his difficulties with language mean that the traditional Hustings format of questions without notice is not practical for him, so he will not be answering questions tonight. Aphasia is a condition that affects communication but not ability. He will be responding to questions online on his Facebook page, and he will also be holding a number of surgeries, which are better formats for his particular disability. Anthony has asked me to thank you for your understanding. Right, if we could start off, may I ask Steve PALLETT to start the proceedings off, please.
Good evening, St Brelade. I'm proud to be your constable, but it's with a tinge of sadness that I stand before you tonight. Not because I don't want to be here, but because serving you as constable over the past 6 years has been the most rewarding period of my professional life. But time moves on, and the reason that I'm standing for senator and not for constable is because there are a number of challenges that we need to address if we're going to have a sustainable and successful future. This evening I'm going to touch on the need for affordable housing, further investment in education and a new active Jersey strategy. We simply don't have enough houses for our young people. To control immigration, we must encourage our young professional islanders back to the island by providing them with quality, affordable homes. The Parish Shared Equity Scheme for 16 homes at Lamoille shows how successful such schemes can be, but we need to deliver it on a larger scale. That is why I'm proposing that the next Council of Ministers find sites for 500 affordable homes as a priority, and I want to be part of a government that delivers. Some candidates on this platform will try and win your vote by throwing stones from the outside of what they perceive to be glass houses. That isn't me. I want to work collaboratively from the inside, building truly affordable homes. But housing isn't enough. With increased automation, the world is becoming more competitive and challenging. Our education system must evolve and evolve fast if our next generation are going to fill an ever-increasing skills gap and plug the shortfall that is currently being filled by uncontrolled inward migration. Academic results are important, but so is the need for inclusivity within schools and opportunities for all children, irrespective of their backgrounds, if we are to reverse the current inequality, especially in our town schools. The Jersey pupil premium needs further investment, but we need to also look at opportunities out of the classroom. Caring cooks is one example of where our children can learn to grow and cook their own healthy food. This is vital now more than ever, because some of our children are suffering both physically and mentally. Child obesity is rising, so we must improve. I want the best for our children. We face a ticking time bomb with our healthcare. That is why I'm proposing a new active Jersey strategy that will improve facilities indoor and out and encourage children through to pensioners to be more active. If this is the kind of strategy that will set out to reduce chronic illnesses such as diabetes and heart disease and will reduce the burden on you, the taxpayer. But we can't just rely on a single government strategy to improve physical and mental well-being. Our youth project next door demonstrates the positive effect that activities can have on young people. This is why I'm also supportive of the need for a new skate park. We need to get behind them so that they can be expressive, socialise and exercise. We must deliver on that. Parishioners, it's been an honour to serve you as constable. I have the energy, leadership and experience to serve you as one of your senators, and I ask for one of your votes. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Our ministerial government doesn't work. Half of the representation is ineffective. Because power is centralised, it's resulted in lost basic principles, which in turn has delivered poor and flawed legislation. Government today has an insatiable appetite for money. We need an accountable government. I can deliver this by preparing legislation for detailed financial accountability. This is important because the detail of spending is what our government is doing and not what they say they are doing, and the waste is colossal. I will put a stop to this. It's not the job of government to create wealth. That is your job. The job of government is to provide services that the public deem important. The economy belongs to the working people and businesses to create. Government must set the rules, however, in so doing, take care not to inhibit the latter. Freedom for large and small businesses is imperative. It should never be the responsibility of business to pay for welfare. That is government responsibility. It must always be funded by collective taxation. Business has already a huge responsibility in providing jobs and services. Anything that impedes the latter will always be counterproductive. Secondly, we need our skilled and unskilled manual workers. There's no one in society more important than another. Paying everything from their... How on one hand can the government pay everything, rent, food, and such like, to welfare, and not provide affordable homes for those that work hard, pay their fat taxes to fund that welfare? It makes no sense at all. Homes must be affordable for those on lower incomes. Therefore, state rentals should reflect this reality. State rentals should fall by 40%, and I will work hard to deliver this. To all those in government and stood down, I thank you. However, it's my belief that we need new ideas. I will change how states members are elected. I can make a large contribution to education and health by better understanding principles, particularly those who are young and left wanting. A vote for me will transform government. I want Jersey to be the envy of the international circuit for the very best of reasons. The tourism industry will be replenished simply by the example we set. Welcome to my new world where people truly come first and the economy is in service to that end. Thank you.
I wonder if I could ask if candidates could please introduce themselves.
Monsieur le Chef, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Ian Gorst. Good evening. I stood for elected office to make a difference and to provide hope for the future. But this election is about change. As Chief Minister, I've guided our island through some of the most difficult economic and social challenges that we have faced. But over the next 4 years, we face challenges that will set our future course as a community for years to come. The uncertainty of Brexit, international uncertainty, and the uncertainty of the EU. We have also suffered the effects of the global financial crisis, and I understand the effect the Great Recession has had on family budgets. Jersey is a great place. We have made significant progress across the community, but I am not satisfied. There is more that I want to see achieved, and I have 3 main aims. Firstly, effective economic leadership. That means protecting and building on the many good things that we find in island life. So supporting the businesses that are already here, but also encouraging development and diversification. Because our economic strength has not happened by accident. I will continue to represent Jersey's economy and way of life on the international stage, defending our reputation in the EU and elsewhere, promoting investment and trade. I want, and I have always wanted, to ensure that all islanders share in this success. Secondly, improving the lives of islanders by building on what we have achieved so far. But I want to do more. That's why I'm proposing an Affordable Housing Commission, a coming together of the community to drive out costs and increase supply, a refocusing of the competition regulator, driving down the cost of living, a building on the long-term care scheme, providing government support at parish level, And post the care inquiry, I'm proposing a new contract with children and young people. And thirdly, I want to continue to transform government and the public service, driving out waste and focusing all that we do on serving islanders. When we work together, we can achieve change and a better way. I stand for hope for the future, so that you don't risk yours. I would appreciate one of your votes on the 16th of May. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stevie Ocean. I will be remaining sitting because if I stand up, I'm 6'2". You can hear me, but I can't hear myself. And so there's no disrespect intended. So let me tell you, we're not going to go into my manifesto because I just put down the basic parameters. I actually published it recently and also gave it to the media where I've gone into it in depth. So what are we going to talk about? Let's talk about what I did in the by-election 2 years ago and what I've achieved, and it's quite a bit actually. My main objective was to remove the letters UK from our 5 islands on Google Maps, and I did achieve that after 2 days of arguing with the Americans. So what else have I done? At the moment, I'm actually in the process of sorting out petitions with my American followers on Twitter to, how can I put this, re-educate the Americans to realise that we're not part of the UK at all. And that goes for LinkedIn, it goes for YouTube, and it also goes for Twitter. So what else have I achieved? Well, in fact, I achieved history because 2 years ago, there was, unfortunately, a confusion over my name. This lost me votes and caused a lot of problems in that respect. I've actually changed the law, and I'm the first person outside the States Assembly to ever do that. So on the ballot paper, you will now see Ocean Stevie, and if I was to be elected, I would be Senator Ocean. So my intention is that as far as everything is concerned, I've done an awful lot. I don't actually make promises. I don't make pledges. I'm a man of action, and a vote for me will be, as far as getting things done is concerned, and I think that's very, very important, because at the end of the day, if you make pledges and you make promises and they don't come to fruition, what's the point? Thank you very much. What's the matter with
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Lefondre. I've had the privilege of representing St Lawrence as deputy for the past 12.5 years. Tonight, I'm seeking your support to receive an island mandate. Professionally, I'm a chartered accountant, which is very useful when dealing with expensive states projects, large sums of expenditure, and complex legislation. And we are representing the island more on an international basis than we used to. For example, I work on l'Assemblée parlementaire de la Francophonie, and I'm also the Jersey representative on the British-Irish Parliamentary Assembly. And in the context of Brexit and ultimately our economy, it is vital that we promote the island to overseas politicians, explaining why we are of benefit to the UK and about our very unique position with Europe. I've been Honorary Secretary of Les Vaux Housing Trust for over 20 years, giving me first-hand experience of the difficulties in providing social housing on this island. St Brelards, as I'm sure you all agree, is a beautiful part of our island. We are shaped by the sea and the coastline, and it is all part of the joy of living on Jersey, but we do have pressures on us, housing and population being the obvious ones, as well as uncertainty surrounding Brexit. It is therefore important that we approach inward migration in a very considered way. I refer you to our recent scrutiny report, which identifies some of the issues, but we will need to grasp the nettle as to how to manage immigration. But firstly, we must have very good data on what is actually happening within our overall population. As President of Scrutiny and Chairman of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel, it's been a hard job holding ministers to account over the past 3.5 years. One of the consistent themes is the poor level of communication and consultation with various parts of the community. This is something that should not be hard to do in a small island, and which I commit to addressing and improving. I was saddened, following the huge meeting I attended at the Town Hall on Wednesday, to hear how our valued nurses appear to have been treated. It cannot be right that one pay group is told to keep their pay award secret from another. I'm hugely passionate about the proper implementation of public sector reform, finally getting rid of the silo mentality. It will save us millions of pounds, but we need to be clear as to how it is being implemented. In my leaflet, I refer to the need for change in the way we do things and in our organisational culture. Communication needs to be genuine and sincere. Jersey is still a fantastic place to live, and we have challenges and opportunities ahead. I have proven political and financial experience. Decisions I make are based on hard evidence. I look at the long term, I'm prepared to listen, and I will work hard to get to a solution. In short, when voting, please will you consider me for one of your 8 votes for Senator. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Simon Bree. I'm proud to be a Jerseyman and honoured to be a Deputy for St Clement. I'm chairman of 3 scrutiny panels and have been working hard on your behalf to hold this government to account. There are major issues facing our island which will have a direct impact on the daily lives of every one of us. Unless we tackle these now, our way of life and our island will change forever. Brexit is looming with its unknown impact on our economy. We must diversify our economy and support small businesses and innovative startups, thus reducing reliance on the finance industry. The population growth over the last few years, if left unchecked and uncontrolled, will have serious consequences on our quality of life. Work permits, which can be seasonal and time limited, are the only real solution. Young families trying to buy their first home are finding it nearly impossible. Government needs to encourage and support the parishes in delivering more small-scale, affordable home developments to give those families hope for a better future. Much sooner these than large-scale developments of concrete and steel. That we have unseen poverty on this island is something that shames all of us. We need to reduce the financial burden placed on middle to low-income families by reducing the cost and size of the public sector. This does not mean reducing services, and simply raising taxes is not the answer. Removal of GST on food and children's clothing would be a step in the right direction. And government must stop wasting money. £26 million on a new hospital without a spade being put in the ground. £800,000 on an aircraft registry with only 1 aircraft to show for it. Countless millions spent on UK consultants, with more spend just announced by the Chief Executive. Do we really need UK consultants to tell us how to run our own island? Politics in Jersey has become polarised. Let us regain the middle ground. Let us have a government that has a social responsibility and is not just some uncaring, soulless corporate entity. This election offers a real opportunity for change. It is time for your voice to be heard. And your vote is your voice. And if you vote for me, I will listen to you and I will represent you. So what do I offer to you as Senator? Years of experience working in the local finance industry, political experience, a demonstrable work ethic, and the courage to stand up for what I believe in. Working together, we can make a real positive difference to the lives of every member of our society. I would be honoured to receive your vote. Thank you.
Monsieur le Chef, Provision of St Ballard, good evening. Thank you for coming. I'm Gerard Baudaiన్స్. Now, I was going to start by covering the present government's achievements, but I couldn't find any, so I started looking at the failures. The hospital, as Deputy BRÉE has just said, a lot of money wasted before work has even started. Immigration, yes, there's flow and ebb, but when the flow exceeds the ebb by nearly 1,000 a year, it's unsustainable. There's more traffic, more green fields lost to housing, and within 15 years we're told we're going to need another 10 schools and possibly 230 Lamoe-type high-rise flats. But Minister tells her immigration helps the economy. Well, how does that work? Most newcomers are fairly low-wage earners who, together with their wives and children, cost more in services than they pay in tax. That creates a declining economy, and not a booming one, as ministers would have us believe. And the idea we need more workers due to an ageing population, all that does is turn Social Security into a Ponzi scheme. When the bubble finally bursts, there's going to be some real problems. And then there's Condor. They should have kept the wave piercers, in my view, or got another boat like the Clipper. I warned the minister at the time not to sign the new contract because the boat they intended buying was not fit for purpose. The fact the builders had been able to sell it for 4 years should have rung alarm bells, preferably it seems a lutein bell. But no, the minister believed Condor and signed the contract. And as usual, the contract, like the one with the filmmaker, had more holes in it than a sieve. Who writes these contracts? The civil service. Are they accountable? No. What are ministers doing about that? Nothing. There seems to me to be no end to this government's incompetence. I've often wondered, are the ministers really as daft as they seem, or is there some hidden agenda? I mean, where's Guy Fawkes when you need him? Like many candidates, I could stand here and tell you, if elected, how I'll sort the housing problem, the immigration issues, the environment, and everything else that's falling apart. But that would be disingenuous, because like them, I won't be able to. The system doesn't allow that. As Senator Bullish recently said, individual candidates can't tell the public if their manifesto promises will be fulfilled, because they don't know whether they'll form part of a government. That's because in our present system, ministers are the government, not the states, and we're not electing ministers. If we want new faces and new policies to make a difference, we first have to change the system to one where those voices can be heard. If elected, I would seek the post of Assistant Chief Minister, the ideal position, in my view, for leading change to the system. Now, I can't bear to watch my island mismanaged by this government any longer. That's why I'm standing. So please help me to help you by giving me one of your votes on May the 16th. Thank you for listening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow parishioners of God's own parish. I expect that you, like me, thought that the new planning application for the hospital covered the entire plan, the entire outline plan. I've got news for you. While we are all concentrating on the election, the Minister for Infrastructure has submitted an application only for access to the site. However, I'm glad to be able to tell you that the Deputy-elect for number 1 district is actually working on this because it's fairly complicated, so we shall no doubt hear about it in due course. I went to the nurses' meeting this week as well. One sister told me that a colleague in another discipline and on the same grade is now being paid some £10,000 more than her and was sworn to secrecy not to tell the nurses. No wonder they're getting militant. They want a proper review, an apology for the deceit. You know, this is an appalling way to treat our essential workforce and an area where we must have change. And let us not talk about the problem of the ageing population. That's rubbish. Who is looking after children in the holidays? The grandparents. Who is doing most of the volunteering in the island? The ageing population. Who is doing much of the caring in the island? The ageing population. That's when they're not climbing Kilimanjaro, hiking through the Pampas, or trekking across Iceland. It is time we stopped writing them off and paid more attention to improve the way they are treated. We're told our economy is in fine fettle, but in the budget for the period to 31 December 2019, our surplus is alleged to be £335,000. This is less than the average cost of a 3-bedroom house. We may make up some of this over the next few years, but no wonder the Fiscal Policy Panel recommend prudence in our spending over the next few years. Can I make a difference? I have an undergraduate degree in engineering, an MBA degree in business, and experience in manufacturing, retail, tourism, and the finance industry, plus tenacity and a strong Methodist work ethic. and I am prepared to continue to put this experience to work for the island and for change. You will hear many promises during this election. I merely ask you to ask, how much will it cost and where will the money come from? I would very much appreciate one of your votes on the 16th of May. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of St Brelade. I'm KRISTINA Moore. My campaign is about balancing competing priorities, working with others effectively to find a better way and a sustainable future for the island. We can do this by focusing on three priorities: the economy, the environment, and our community. We have an economy that performs well, and I want to see it strengthen into the future. The more successful business is, the more revenue we will raise to fund healthcare, education, and help to those in need. In a world of rapid change, it's essential to adapt to a digital age, to boost skills and productivity, to thrive and remain competitive. We all cherish our beautiful environment and our coastline. We also need to protect it. We need to improve water, air, and soil quality. If we are to take on this priority, we can also reduce congestion and improve air quality, minimise waste, and still create affordable homes for everyone. Our community is safe and it's friendly. This also needs to be protected. I will champion the needs of our elders and ensure that our system that supports them well now will also leave it in good shape to look after their grandchildren when they too reach retirement age. I embrace diversity and inclusion and will seek further improvements to our mental health services so that people receive help before experiencing a crisis in their lives. When making decisions, we need to take all three of these issues into account to deliver a positive result for each and every one. Politics is about people, but tonight I want to talk to you about buildings. Firstly, people need homes. Many struggle to get on the housing ladder, and high housing costs can lead to financial hardship and pressure on families. I'll support Senator GORST's Affordable Housing Commission, which we need to improve our supply and give everyone a chance for a decent home. I'm not arguing that we turn every field over to housing, far from it. But our public buildings also are important, and you know that here in St Brelade. You've waited for a new school for Kennervay students for many years. Well, today I met a young couple who won a tour of the new police headquarters in the Christmas appeal auction. After years of painful debate, this building is now operational and a joy for all who work in it. I aspire for all of our public buildings to reach this standard. But the sadness in this story is that the argument has also delayed the building of social housing on the Summerland site. People could be living in those houses today, but they're still demolishing the old buildings. Don't let the hospital go the same way. A decision has been made and we should all get behind it so that patients can be treated in a dignified and a modern way. Experience has taught me that islanders want to see brave and clear leadership. And please vote for more. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tracey Vallois. I have served as a States Member for 9.5 years, as Deputy of St Saviour and as Deputy of St John. I have carried out numerous roles during this time that have either influenced changes or have had a direct impact on policies and legislation. My roles have included Assistant Minister at both Education and Treasury, Chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, President of the Scrutiny Chairman's Committee, and serving as a member or Vice Chair on a variety of topics across the scrutiny areas. The role of a States Member is not one to be taken lightly, nor is it a role that any one person can claim they manage to do alone. I have proven that I am able and willing to work with all members on very pressing matters which have challenged and continue to challenge our island in a responsible and effective manner. Examples of this can be seen from the introduction of a completely independent framework for the Comptroller and Auditor General, our equivalent to the National Audit Office, in 2014, working with the Chief Minister, The persistence and hard work, both in Treasury and on scrutiny, to introduce an improved funding mechanism for higher education, the overturning of the nursery education funding position, waste charges and the infrastructure levy. During the next term, there needs to be a better focus on how public funding is applied to outcomes for the delivery of public services. The ability to measure results in terms of public expectations has been extremely difficult for many reasons, such as insufficient data and the inability to align policy with funding. This leads to distrust and negativity. An assessment of user pay charges and consideration around where public subsidy should be suitably placed to meet clear policy goals is essential. The role of charities, in my opinion, goes to the core of what makes this island so very special. But we have issues. There are continuing tensions and uncertainties around the support and value which government provides to this sector, without whom the most vulnerable in our society would suffer greatly. We need a position where the roles and the invaluable work of charities is recognised as a partnership, and to build a relationship of trust and respect so that the very people we are looking to represent do not suffer. We need to change behaviour and set out our values right from the start, ensuring we are delivering for the public in a cohesive and modern way. Silo working and individual power plays have failed and will continue to fail if we cannot get to grips with the role of ministerial government. We need to change, we need to listen, and we need to work as a team to produce solutions and create a more certain future. I have the tenacity, drive and willingness to get moving on many of these issues, and I want to do it in partnership with you, the people of Jersey. Please consider me for one of your votes on the 16th of May. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gordon George Troy. Jersey born in 1954, educated at De La Salle College. I'm passionate about Jersey, it's my island and I love it. I'd appreciate the honour and the privilege of serving the people of Jersey as Senator. Politics has been a part of my family as long as I can remember. There has been a Troy or Shenton in the States of Jersey since around when I was born, except for the last political term. When GST was introduced, I recognised it as a pay cut for every Jersey resident. I knew this tax would hit the most vulnerable in our society, the poor, the pensioner, working families with young children and small struggling businesses. My aim if elected will be to keep GST pegged at 5% and raise tax thresholds so that small income families and pensioners will pay less tax. I'd like to make it very clear I am totally against increased taxation for our public. I'm passionate about helping our Jersey pensioners, and they have been long overlooked politically. The pension scheme is meant to help people achieve and maintain financial independence. In my opinion, it falls well short of this. One of my main political aims, if elected, will be to assist pensioners to get better pension benefits, better health care, and better housing designed to meet their needs. Our senior citizens have helped create our island's prosperity. We must do our very best to look after them. As we've heard about the minimum wage, now the livable wage. But have we ever heard about the livable pension? No, nothing, not a word. It's been a kept secret. If elected, I will mention this phrase regularly in the States and bring propositions to the States to improve pensioners' lives. Jersey's government has continually failed to control population. We failed to introduce work permits, proper controls, but there's going to be a change because Brexit will be the architect of our immigration policy. Under Brexit, the UK territories will have forced border controls. The UK will want to know who is here, what they're doing, and where they're going on next. This is the time Jersey needs to put in a proper immigration policy and introduce work permits for all. short seasonal stay permits for hospitality and farming, and longer stay permits and licences for key members of staff, vital to the island and to the island's economy. That's my time, isn't it? Thank you very much, everybody. Please vote.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is LYNDON Farnham. In November 2014, I was appointed Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture, and since then I have worked on behalf of islanders to deliver strong and sustainable growth across all sectors of the economy. Maintaining a strong economy is important not only because it provides new jobs and career opportunities, but also creates the wealth required to help those in our community who find themselves in need and allow society to develop for the benefit of everyone. This evening I would like to talk briefly about education and the development of our sporting and leisure infrastructure. It is important for our young people to leave school having achieved their potential both academically and physically in order to give them the best possible start in life. I fully support moves by schools to place more focus on character development, good citizenship, life skills, and the teaching of our own heritage, history, and local politics. On Tuesday morning, together with other election candidates, I attended a briefing by the Jersey Construction Council and was struck by the high demand for skilled trades and the difficulty currently being faced in obtaining them. In 2017, the island produced 156 apprenticeships through the Tracker scheme, which is good, but we can and we must do better. Now, not all children want an academic career, which is why we must do more to teach and encourage vocational skills and even on-the-job training from a much earlier age. In addition, we must invest in either upgrading Highlands College or consider building a new technology and trades college for our young people so we can harness the talent available to produce many more qualified local tradesmen and women rather than having to keep importing them. It's important for islanders of all ages that we continue to develop our sporting and leisure infrastructure. A key priority for me, if elected, will be the rejuvenation of Fort Regent. There is great potential to do something really special with the fort, but we will need much more political resolve, better vision, and a strong partnership with the private sector to achieve this. It is also essential, in my view, that we build a new skateboard facility, which, if done properly, and I mean properly, something world-class, which will not only provide a safe, well-managed facility to develop the sport of skateboarding, but will encourage and inspire our young people to live happier and healthier lives in a positive, productive, and safe environment, and will provide exceptional opportunities for them to play, learn, compete, and grow together. Ladies and gentlemen, Jersey's in good shape. We have strong foundations, and we must keep it that way. To do that, we will need to elect serious people with proven vision, highly experienced people with a proven track record who are committed to attaining that goal, and I ask you to bear that in mind when you vote on the 16th of May. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Moz Scott, and my story actually begins in St Brelade. But we're talking about foundations, so let's talk about plans. You have plans, they have plans, I have plans, and I put them in my manifesto, so I won't repeat those here. I'm going to focus on why it's important to have good plans. And 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I was asked to look at something that was relevant to a plan called the Island Plan. It's a document that is approved by the States Assembly that is meant to explain how we're going to use a very limited resource in the island. It's our land. And I was asked to look at a very small aspect of that plan, which was to do with a strip of beach in St Brelade's Bay. And when I looked at this plan, I realised actually it wasn't that good a plan. And I asked questions. And the more questions I asked, I realised, well, actually there's a whole problem in which this plan's put together, because let me explain about my background. I'm an Oxford graduate. I'm a qualified lawyer in English law and in Jersey law. And, okay, so I do understand a bit about detail. And when I looked at this plan, I realised, well, okay, who wants to look at a plan? Who likes planning? Not many people. I didn't actually think I would want to be looking at planning regulations, and I suspect most people in the States didn't either. But it's important. As a result of the way that it's structured, we're not clear about where we want affordable housing. I'm not sure we're even clear if we want farmland. I'm not even sure if we're clear if we actually want a tourist industry, because it has to be clear. It has to be clear for you. If you're building something, surely you should know if you can build it there before you actually spend all the money on your own plans. So all I'm asking you is, I may not be somebody who has been in the States Assembly before, but I am somebody who can contribute something. I'm good value for money because I actually am able to understand things like tax, which does need reforming. I am able to understand legislation because I don't think it's right for politicians to expect civil servants and law draftsmen to do all the work. So please consider giving one of your votes for me. I won't disappoint you. I will represent all of you, which is why I'm standing as Senator for that island-wide mandate. Thank you. Please vote for me.
Friends, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sam MEZEC and I've been the Deputy for St Helier No. 2 District for the last 4 years now. I'm standing for election alongside 17 other Reform Jersey candidates, 2 of whom are standing here in St Brelade, because we want to play a positive and constructive role in the next government of Jersey, with our #1 aim being to improve the standard of living for all islanders. It's time for change, and it's time we had a government which represented the interests of ordinary islanders and was focused on making all of our lives better. Over the last 10 years, the gap between the haves and the have-nots has gotten wider. We are now a more unequal society than the UK, and poverty has drastically risen. We've seen many of our public services deteriorate whilst millions continue to be wasted by the government. And this is happening in one of the wealthiest societies in the world, and it is not inevitable. Jersey has the potential to be a beacon around the world for equality, for prosperity, and for environmentalism, if only we had governments with a clear vision of how to get there. So that's why we're standing for election as a team, committed to this change. If you elect me and other Reform Jersey candidates, we will be an unsilenceable voice for working people to make sure that nobody is left behind by the government, and we will make it our mission to raise the standard of living for all islanders. I spent this afternoon knocking on doors in Don Farm, speaking to residents about their concerns. I spoke to one family who bought their home many years ago with the help of a state's loan, and we're now worried about young people, many of whom can only dream about owning a nice house one day because the housing market is simply broken. I spoke to some elderly residents who had a friend who they were worried about because they knew that she needed to see a doctor, but she won't call one because she just can't afford it. We need states members who understand these problems, who can relate to ordinary people, and who are prepared to work to find solutions. What has given me hope so far in this campaign is the number of people I've spoken to who have said that they've never voted before, but they will this time because they think it's time for change. We've published a full manifesto which you can find on our website, which outlines our 10 key pledges which we can guarantee we will work on implementing if we're elected. If the people of Jersey offer us the opportunity to take a leading role in the next government of Jersey, we will not let you down. A better Jersey is possible, and we are absolutely determined to make it happen. We are a prosperous island, but we must all be able to share in that prosperity and live happy and fulfilling lives. Making that happen should be the #1 mission of the States of Jersey. So on the 16th of May, please vote for me, Sam MEZEC, for Senator, and your local Reform Jersey candidates. Thank you very much.
Good evening, St Brelade's. My name is Frank Luce. Thank you for attending this hustings tonight, and thank you for ensuring that your name be on the electoral roll, enabling you to vote. Your vote and how you vote has never been so important. We are facing a landmark election. You are going to shape the future of the next government for all Islanders. You, the minority, are going to carry the apathetic majority into better government by your choice of candidates before you tonight. Never before has the gap between the government and the electorate been greater. Islanders are so appalled by the antics of the present sitting state members, they have turned their back on politics and have lost total faith and feel angry that their opinions are completely ignored by elected members once they get into government. Frankly, reading letters to the editor in the Jersey Evening Post should be made compulsory reading for all states members. The appalling success of low voting turnouts as the war is testimony to the contempt Islanders have for standing government. This situation can only be reversed by better government made up of members who first and foremost listen to the people and shape their policies to make government inclusive to the electorate. Then and only then will the general public feel included, in touch, and this will result in a greater desire to vote. In the meantime, and for this most important election, your vote will speak for all Islanders. Potential voters see the system of government in Jersey as bad. They want nothing to do with it. That was my opinion. However, the present Assembly have horrified me to such an extent that I am now before you asking for your votes that I may represent the thoughts, feelings and opinions of Islanders in the Chamber itself. I want to have a strong and significant input in the two long outstanding issues, the appalling hospital saga and the independent inquiry into the lifeboat power and personality struggle the present government does not wish to handle. To face in the new Assembly the looming priorities of Brexit and population control, and ensure that agriculture and tourism are better supported to form a holy trinity of business sectors along with the finance industry. I want to work for a listening States Chamber that puts Islanders first, and for that I need your confidence and your support and, of course, your vote. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak to you, and hope to meet you and I'll be of service to you for the next momentous 4 years. For your ballot paper, my name is Luce, Frank Luce. Make the change happen. As certain voters, you have it in your hands to bring in a new style government, a new inclusive people's government. The time has come. Please do it for the benefit of us all. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Phil Maguire. My online manifesto tells you that I got back into the political game because the income tax department are breaking the law again. But so far I haven't talked about that in the various hustings because there were various other departments also breaking the law I wanted to bring to the highlight. So I'd like to correct that tonight by talking about income tax. When I was wanting to put on the worst thing that income tax were doing on my manifesto, it was a choice between two things, the one I eventually posed and the one I'm going to talk to you about tonight. The income tax law is abusing its right to assess people's income by over-assessing them, in some cases by many thousands of pounds, and they're also claiming then that they're able to appeal, as is their right, but if that appeal goes beyond the 12-month period, they will automatically get a fine and will have to pay that fine even if later on the appeal turns out to prove that they didn't actually owe the money in the first place. Now, this is all a lie. The law clearly states that no money is owed to the income tax department until a proper assessment is made and proper appeal process is followed. Anytime there is a dispute, the income tax office has no right to that money until the dispute is resolved. And yet here we are being told otherwise. I mean, it's basically obtaining monies with menaces, which we call mugging if it was done by anybody other than the tax department. That means if there's ever a case where they get your income tax incorrect and you appeal, they are obliged to stop taking payments. They're obliged to give back any money that's in dispute until such time as the dispute is finished. Then and only then can they issue fines after 12 months from that period. Anything else is wrong. In fact, the writers of the law felt your right of appeal was so important, they gave it to you twice. There's a 30-day appeal, which you have standard, and then, according to Article 38, there's an additional period that goes from the 31st day up to 5 years. They felt that your right to be able to make sure that you get charged the right amount of income tax was that important. You know, all of this is being violated by the present Income Tax Department, and by extension by the Treasury Department, by the Council of Ministers, who seem to be quite happy to turn a blind eye to this practice. So I'd like to leave you with two questions. The first is, how many people are paying more than their legal obligation because of lies and fear tactics by the Income Tax Department? And the second question I'd like to leave you with is, how have we come to this place where our government is happy that the Income Tax Department can lie and cheat and steal from you? Thank you.
And Lewis, you have never seen a candidate like me before. I am different. I have a different campaign and a different voice, but different is what Jersey needs. My stroke has left me disabled, but it has given me courage, determination and new insight. I will represent those who, like me, don't have a voice. Not just the disabled, but everyone who feels that today's politicians don't speak for them. What is the future for Jersey? Where do we want to go? My focus includes the environment, equality, and community. We need to improve the community of Jersey. We need to improve the environment. It will cost money, but it is an investment for my children and your children. There is no clear voice for the environment in the current states. There can be no silos. We need to share more information. Equality. I bring a new perspective, one formed by both success and hardship. I believe mental health provision must be higher up the political agenda, more understanding and reduced stigma. Where we see inequality and stigma in Jersey, it should be fought. We need less old boys club. We are improving and have more cosmopolitan living. To create a more equal island. The dangers of having an island of haves and have-nots. I believe that the most marginalized and downtrodden members of our society have something to contribute. From the inmate at Lemoy to the homeless man in the parade, we all have insights and abilities to help make Jersey a better place to live. The different communities in Jersey, everyone has skills and talents. Everyone. We need a system that allows those talents to flourish. The first step is to break down our own inbuilt stigmas. That is a role of education and defining common goals. Our children and their schooling hold the key. It is then identifying those abilities and channeling them where they are most needed. We need more social enterprises to create businesses and programs that build on our social capital, like my campaign headquarters, the Beresford Street Kitchen. Communities working together makes us all stronger, and it starts at school. We also need greater recognition of support. The voluntary sector. With more effort from the states, we can better coordinate the work that charities do. I will be the first person with aphasia to stand for the states. I appreciate that makes me different. I hope that I will be able to represent islanders, who don't always fit in with the norm. If you believe in these things too, then vote for me, and together, we can make a change. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to all the candidates for their speeches. We're now getting to the point where we put them all on the spot. Do we have any questions, please? The gentleman standing in white at the back there, please.
Christopher David, assisted dying. Could I ask that any candidate who is not in favour of assisted dying, please raise a hand. That is very encouraging indeed. Thank you.
Right, I think we're on to the next question, which is a little bit strange. I think because of that question, we will ask 2 questions from now on. The lady in blue here, at the front.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Iris Fritz, and if I listen to the media, I can hear that there is lots of input into the States coming from the Chamber of Commerce and from other such institutions, and occasionally from the third sector as well. What I would like to ask the candidates is please share with us the strategy you have to ensure that yourself and all the other States members over the next 4 years will be exposed to a healthy and balanced diet of lobbying, so that every member in society, your ordinary tenant, your ordinary employee, your single mother, your everybody who isn't organized in a body, gets equal input into the States, and that their voices are heard as much as those that come through the Chamber of Commerce and other channels. Thank you very much.
And the gentleman there.
Hello everybody, my name is Philip Minty. I'd like to ask if the candidates support a new skate park in St Helier to replace the new North Quay Park when it closes in September.
So if we could start with Mr. BRÉE, please.
Thank you very much. It's important that government listens to everybody, not just large lobby groups like the finance industry, the Chamber of Commerce. What's lacking at the moment is we have a government who doesn't listen to you, the people. They won't take your views into account unless you belong to a large lobby group like the Chamber of Commerce, the finance industry, Jersey Finance, etc. How do we solve this broken relationship between government and the people? Well, the only way to do that is to make sure that, whether it be once a quarter, once a month, or whatever, the senators are in the States building and you can come and meet them, you can come and talk to them. It's used a lot in the UK where the MPs have surgeries within their constituents. It's something we don't do that well, because previously surgeries used to be held in parish halls. A lot of people who have got an issue with the state don't want to go to the parish hall. So let's see whether we can organise surgeries so that you, the people, can talk directly to your elected representative, whether they be senators, deputies or constables, in a truly independent environment. You can go there and talk to them whenever you like. As to the support for the skate park, yes, I do support one. I think it's in a terrible position at the moment. We need to make it available. It's got to be accessible. But it's about time the government started putting money where their mouth is. How long have you been promised a new skate park? How long have we been told you'll get better facilities? And nothing seems to happen. So yes, I support it. Thank you.
To take the very first question, assisted dying, yes, I am in favour in certain circumstances. Secondly, input from the Chamber of Commerce and such other organisations. I agree from my previous experience, you have to be very careful that you get a balanced view of what islanders in general want and not be led astray by particularly vociferous lobby groups. For example, I know, if I remember correctly, the Chamber of Commerce is asking for sustained immigration, but that's not what I hear from the general public. So you have to take a balanced view. Do I support a new skate park? Yes, indeed, I do. But I would like them to respect the facility better than they did the previous one.
Yes, a further comment to Chris Davey. I worry if we've got organ donation on one hand and assisted dying on the other. You know, that really does worry me. But think about it. Lobbying, yes, you have to be a little cynical with some of the lobbying. As Gerard said, we hear that we've got to have masses of immigration. I'm sorry, you know, we do have to have work permits, I'm afraid, because at the present rate of progress, if we have 700 people a year, we will need 185 Le Marais flats and 30 new primary schools. 6 new primary schools, sorry. So it really is too difficult. I talk to people, I'm chairman of Age Concern, so I talk to people there. I talk to people at the Biarritz Hotel because there I hear what the tourist wants. I talk to people at the supermarket, especially at sort of 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon when all the pensioners are in looking for the bog-offs. And I talk to taxi drivers, and they know everything. And if you think government doesn't speak to you, try being on scrutiny. There's a new skate park. As an ex-centenaire, I'm very much in favour. And it would take skateboarders off the road. They come down Montsoyer at something like 45 miles an hour, and I'm terrified. And by the time I get out to sort of tell them off, they've gone. So, you know, let's have a proper skate park. Originally, we were trying to get one up at Kennebec, but thank you.
Thank you for the questions. For the last 6.5 years, Iris, I have conducted surgeries in the parish of St Peter, where I've been their representative, and I've received a great variety of different people on a weekly basis and been able to take up issues for them. And I've given some thought to how I could do that if I were to become a senator, because I do think it's really important that we continue to listen and communicate and have a dialogue with people and not just lobby groups. It's important for lobby groups, obviously, to have their say, to make their points, and obviously they do so clearly, but it is also important that we're accessible. I believe with modern communication it is an awful lot easier for people to reach out to their states members and make their views held, and often people do, but it's also important that we're out and seen and approachable, and so I have perhaps been thinking about using a venue like the Salvation Army Hub at Minden Place, where I could be available for people, but I will refine that and I will make it very clear if I'm elected. On the subject of a skate park, I absolutely agree that we need to find a better location for a new skate park for young people. We need a variety of different things for our young people to do, to reach out and make their lives interesting and to develop new avenues. I really have supported in my term of office the work of the cadets, the Sea Cadets, the Air Cadets, and also the CCF and Army Cadets. They do fantastic work, and I would really like to see more young people having those opportunities to investigate different parts of life.
Okay, I'll start with the second question. With regards to supporting the new skate park, absolutely 100% behind a new skate park. And on to the question about engaging, a strategy for engaging. Well, first of all, I take all the ministers out of Cyril Muckle House, out of their offices in their departments, and I'd make them work with all politicians. Because all politicians, you have deputies elected, constables elected, senators elected, and they all have contact with various people over the island in various different ways. So being able to have that discussion and be able to understand what is going on in each area is really valuable. There's also meeting rooms in the States building where I've met regularly with people who have contacted me. Contact details are available, whether you contact Moray House or they're online. I've done surgeries with a constable monthly in St John's, and I would suggest that there's possibly a way of us doing maybe a once a month in each parish. There's 12 months, 12 parishes, once a month to engage people. But our contact details are all out there, and people do regularly contact me, and I'm sure many other members who have served in the States. And so my strategy would be to actually get the politicians actually working much more closely together, so that they're listening to all different views in the island, and then move forward with that strategy.
Hi. Assisted dying, I think, if correctly managed, psychologically examined, I don't have a problem with it. Moving on to equality in lobbying. You can never really have that because some people are more organised than others, but there should be situations where people can lobby the states a bit easier than there is now. Onto the skateboard park. You know, we had a consultant apparently decide where it should go, which is very disappointing when we have brains and talent here. This is something I would have put out to the sixth form colleges where we have skateboarding talent and brains to do their own research and come up where they thought it was suitable for them. So that's the way I would have dealt with a skateboarding park, and we should really get on with it wherever it's going to be. So thank you very much.
The Chamber, Institute of Directors and other organisations are expert lobbyists, and they do it regularly and they do it well. Not always, but sometimes. But I think there should be help available perhaps via the States GREF for groups of people that want to come together and lobby as a group. Individually, I think States members are good at listening and are very approachable. In actual fact, where else in the world can you approach one of your members of Parliament, pick up the phone, call them, call the Chief Minister? And if any of you want his number, I've got it. I'll see you at the end afterwards. It's freely available. Give him a call. I've already spoken about the skateboard park. We need to do it. But if we do it, we've got to do it properly. We've got to do something that people around the world will look at as an example. They've done it in places like the Cayman Islands. If you look it up, if you go in Google and look at the top 20 skateboard parks, some of the smallest places in the world have done something very special. And it hasn't only encouraged skateboarding, it's encouraged young people to come together in a number of different ways and build confidence, build friendships. And actually, in some places, it's run by the young people itself. And I think that would be a great idea for us. So yes, I fully support that. Thank you.
I think it's very important for politicians to listen, and I don't actually always see States Assembly members listen to each other. So I think, Joe, generally, when it comes to lobby groups, a lot really depends on who's in that lobby group, who's got the resources. I have actually run a lobby group, and it's not easy. So you have to compete with the big boys if you're actually a working mother or somebody who isn't kind of resourced in that way. So it's important to have a way in which you are listened to, and you don't have to pull together and find all these resources and do these big presentations, which is why my manifesto, I'm very keen to have a clearer system of representation where you can collect information at parish level and present it. So, for example, if you have an actual issue, you can talk to your own deputy. He can actually see if that's a general issue. I'm not saying don't go and talk to senators or ministers even. I do have a bit of concern that sometimes you don't know who ministers are actually listening to. And I do believe you need more transparency there. So it's a complicated issue, but generally, I do believe you should support lobbyists, but in a way that actually works for them. And skateboarding park, I do very much support one. I believe generally we need to make more, for clearer more of a clearer designation of areas for recreation, leisure in the island plan, and sort that out before we enact the next one. Thank you.
Ms Fritz, when you used the words healthy diet, you had me very nervous indeed, but thankfully it's a question about lobbying. I think that I've got a reputation as a member who does proactively seek out people representing different groups to try and get their views on subjects. In fact, on Wednesday, the Chief Executive of the Chamber of Commerce told me that apparently I'm the only sitting states member that has ever proactively actually sought their views rather than waited to be invited. And I've done the same with various charities, the trade unions and churches as well. I think the difficulty I've had is that there's only so much time you can devote to doing that. But the advantage I have is that I'm standing as part of a team, and that's the sort of thing that you can delegate to people and have them feed their views up through a committee and have that formulated in your policies. And I think that's the sort of thing that can make things much easier. On the skate park, page 31 of our manifesto clearly commits us to supporting a skate park, and we certainly will do that. 10 years ago, when I was a student at Holier School, we knew then that the skate park was in need of being fixed, and it's taken a long time for it to find its way up the political agenda. I just give you a warning, though. Remember 4 years ago when we were in this hall for the last senatorial election, we had this wonderful report about rejuvenating Fort Regent, and here we are 4 years later and not a thing has been done. I just worry that it could be one of those areas of interest before an election and then forgotten immediately afterwards. We must make sure that that doesn't happen. Just very quickly on the subject of assisted dying, I think the phrase is assisted dying, not assisted suicide. There is a nuanced difference there, and I think that there should always be support for people when they know that they're dying to be able to choose the most peaceful and painless way for them to go out, whether that is naturally or whether that is assisted. The system must be compassionate, and no one must ever feel forced to choose one option above another.
Mr. Davey, I think everybody, every sensible thinking person, does not want to see somebody suffer. I certainly wouldn't want to see my animals suffer, and I've had many animals, and when the time has come, I've done the thing that one had to do, and that was make life and death easy for them. So as far as your question is concerned, yes, assisted dying is a must, without a question of a doubt. When it comes to yourself in terms of lobbying, I've just actually said in my speech to you all, I want to work for a listening states chamber that puts islanders first. And that's exactly what I want. We haven't got a listening states chamber at the moment. They're away in the clouds, and you are not considered. I want a listening states chamber. And I also put in my manifesto that if I am elected as a senator, that I would hold a political surgery once a fortnight. And my aim would be to get a room at Radisson Hotel and be available for 2 hours on a Tuesday on a fortnightly basis to listen to people. As far as the skate park is concerned, we don't need a skate park, we need a world-class skate park. We've got the money, we've got the resources. Our kids over here on the island need something like this, and in fact it could be bigger than a skate park. It could be it could cover many other angles of sport and entertainment for children. Thank you.
I think one of the weaknesses that we have with our present government is scrutiny. Scrutiny is just not strong enough to do its job properly at the moment. And I think part of that scrutiny has to be where you deal with real case histories. And real case histories mean real people with their real lives. So I would promote, wherever possible, a more interactive situation where we get out into the community and find out. On a personal basis, maybe it's something to do with the waistcoat or something, but when people find that I'm standing, they are quite happy to tell me anything and everything about what they would like changed. And I've had some really great ideas that way. And it's incredible how ingenious and sensible the people of Jersey are, and I'm amazed that we don't listen to them more often. Well, why are we getting consultants when we have such clever people here is beyond me. As far as a skate park is concerned, I don't know what the problem is. You know, every time we have one over here, the kids get on with it, they enjoy themselves, they don't cause any trouble, and they're not playing Call of Duty 4. I mean, what is the big problem?
Just on that first question, compassionate assisted dying to end your life, I agree. I think we should be compassionate with when people have got to a point where they can't carry on anymore. In regards to lobbying, it's happening now with individuals and groups on Twitter, Facebook. We're having it every day at the moment, and it's good. What I do want to see, though, what I'd like to see is something that sort of mirrors the Council of Ministers, have actual People's Council, where groups, if they had issues or problems, they could go to members within that council, and that council would meet with the Council of Ministers maybe 4 or 5, 6 times a year, and so the public could really have a taste of and get their points of view across to the Council of Ministers. I can't believe a comment that was made in regards to, from Deputy Bree in regards to nobody wants to go to their parish halls. They do go to their parish halls. They're the centre of their community, and they need to remain the centre of their community. That's an opportunity where people can come and talk to me. They do come and talk to me. They come and talk to me on a regular basis. In regards to skate park, I chair the group that's looking to get a new skate park. I mentioned in my speech about glass houses. Again, we're at it again. Government's not reacting. I got the skate park reopened within a week, maybe 2 weeks of it being shut. Within 2 weeks of that, we had a project manager, and 2 weeks after that, she was here talking to skateboarders about what they want, not about what we want, what they would like to see as a skate park. We've moved it forward. We're looking to find a site. Mr. Troy, it's not... The people that will decide who they want a skate park will be the skateboarders. We need to get behind the skateboarders on this. Come on, guys.
The reason today why we don't have an effective government is actually you and your choices. You see, we've got the opportunity, and you've had for the last 20 years, to make this table accountable, but you've chosen not to do it. And there's many professionals in this audience who must know that if you don't make your government accountable, particularly financially accountable, handing over hundreds of millions of pounds and say, well, you know, look after it for me, when you've got the ability to ask them for the receipt, well, I'm sorry, it's your fault, because I've been giving you this for about 15, 20 years. Now, when it comes to expertise, when I want an accountant, I'll employ one. When I want a lawyer, I'll employ one. Now, if I want someone to look after what is the direction of the island, I'm sorry, they're not generally the type of people who understand it. But I've been no, they're not. They understand like you do. Where you put your focus, you understand. I focused for 25 years on human behaviour. I have focused on that and read, deeply read. And I'm telling you, you can't serve you, top people can't serve you as well as the corporates. The corporates want to increase share value. If they want to increase share value, they're not going to be looking after the interests of the public. The two don't get together. Now you have to become more intelligent and just feel where your future lies. And I've listened to this for 68 years. It doesn't lie on this table.
I'll start with lobbying. My experience is that islanders are not shy in coming forward and telling me what they think about me. be that in the supermarket or walking through town or on the aeroplane. And I think that's what's really great about Jersey. Actually, we are visible. I've got to say, from a personal perspective, one of my great disappointments about this job is that when people are really struggling, they tend only to come to me in this role after a problem has become so intractable and has gone on for years that it's really difficult to solve. So I think we need something like an early intervention unit where people who are having problems with the states can get in touch with that, and it can be solved much earlier than it going on for years and causing such heartache. Your constable is right about a type of people's panel. We've set up a youth panel. They helped me with the recruitment of the Children's Commissioner. They came up with me to Scotland. We need that sort of people's panel who can meet with ministers, who can meet with states members and help inform policy and balance the big lobby groups, which do a great job, and they are absolutely necessary. New skate park, absolutely. The Children's Commissioner has just questioned several hundred children, and they say again and again and again and again there aren't enough facilities. That's why I'm proposing a new contract with children and young people to look at facilities as well, and it should be a world-class skate park facility. I do want to come back, Mr. Davey, to assisted dying, because my view is it is not a simple put your hand up or say yes or no to it. It is a complex issue. We know that the Liverpool pathway, which was a medical way of supporting people, fell into disrepute. If we're going to have a conversation as a community like they are in our sister isle, let's have that conversation. Let's be respectful. It is about compassion. It is something, though, that we have to do very carefully.
Right, now I can hear myself. Unfortunately, when I opened up on my speech before, I could hear nothing. The volume was turned down 50%. So I can now hear. That's why we had that problem. And all I could hear coming from my side was clipping. Anyway, no excuses. I couldn't hear myself. Basically, assisted dying, I'm all for this on compassionate grounds for the simple reason that if somebody is in a lot of pain and basically their quality of life is deteriorating, then their life should be ended. Now, as far as communicating with the general public, okay, I don't think that's funny at all. Communicating with the general public on the basis of what I intend to do, it would be to hold a surgery at St Paul's Centre. I'd hire a room on a monthly basis so people could come and see me with their issues and with their matters, and we can sort them out. Now, the funny one here, the skate park. Well, basically, you're never going to believe this because skateboards have been used in the pavilion roof at Fort Regent, and I've actually seen them. So the sooner we do get a skate park up and going, the better. And I actually think that a petition should be started on this to get things moving. Thank you very much.
Assisted dying, I'm not instinctively against it, but the jury is still out for me because I can think of various different circumstances when we've lost family members, and I'm well aware, therefore, of the issues, as I'm sure many people are in this room, that families face in these terrible end-of-life moments. It needs very, very sensitive consideration. It very much depends on the circumstances, but you do need to consider the ethical and moral arguments as well. Skateboard park, yes, I think that's a fairly given. Yes, I support it. I haven't seen the details, I'm afraid, but it is important to replace and improve the facility. Now, lobbying. I understood it was about lobbying rather than complaints, so I'll try and hopefully focus on that. It is a mix of solutions at the end of the day. Oddly enough, one of the consistent themes we've had on scrutiny is actually the lobby groups that the lady has referred to are also not happy on the level of consultation they're getting. And part of the problem is that it all starts very well at the beginning, and there's lots of interaction, and then suddenly it all goes silent, possibly even for a year. And then you get told, here's the law, and it's being lodged in 8 weeks' time. And so the middle bit, there's not an iterative process which allows them to go through that detail. Now, surgeries are important. I've tried to run them as deputies in the past. However, you kind of sometimes run out of steam. You suddenly end up with sort of two people turning up, and there's no engagement there. So Scrutiny role. As President of Scrutiny, we've got quite an important role to play there. We've been changing, actually, over the last few years. We've been running hearings which have had live streaming, which actually had some very good feedback very, very recently. We've changed the venues, we've changed the times. And that is actually also part of that process. What was I going to say? The other thing actually about individuals is you need a mechanism for those individuals to be aware of actually what's going on in terms of what the policies are and things that are being debated, and then how they interact with them. For example, I'd say the consultation on the Kenway school site wasn't actually that bad. Parish system is actually a crucial part of that lobbying process of having the deputies and councils involved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Could we have a couple more questions, please? The lady in the front here.
My name is Carolyn Burgess. I've lived in St Brelade most of my life. And my concern is about young people trying to own their first house, which is really difficult. Now, I've heard from all the gentlemen and the ladies on the table that they are in favour of building more easily affordable or fairly affordable houses for young people. My issue is that in travelling around the island, I found that there are so many small family houses which have been purchased by developers, made bigger, and taken them out of the housing market. Now, if we're going to allow that constantly, I know 5 within walking distance of where I am, and they haven't been enlarged so someone can put another bathroom on top of the garage. They've been enlarged so you can double the price. So unless we can do something about this, we're going to be endlessly building new houses. Thank you.
I can see a hand with a green pen up there.
Hello, I'm Jackie Carroll, St Brelade's resident. So farmers have signed up to LEAF, that's Linking Farming and Environment, which I think is a really good start in the right direction. They're custodians of our land. Drawing on your own area of expertise, such as science or food policy and security or tax, etc., what specifically would you do to help farmers develop even more ecologically friendly practices? And how might you extend this to Jersey smallholders and gardeners?
Thank you. I think Lyndon Farnham's drawn the short straw for starting these.
At St Clement, I spoke briefly about affordable housing. I think everybody on the panel said, yes, we want affordable housing. In fact, we're making a lot of statements without saying how we're going to do it. I actually think one of the key issues is the supply and demand issue, because as long as the demand is outstripping the supply, then there's going to be price pressures. And we have to make more productive use of our land. We have a lot of land that is not productively used for housing. In addition to that, I think we need to implement more help to buy schemes, for example, deposit loan schemes, and even equity release schemes. We can't do equity release over here, but there's a lot of money in property that could be used, and the owners of property, parents wanting to help their children, they don't want to take out second mortgages or loans, but they would like to release some of their equity. That can also help to alleviate the pressure. And finally, we've got about 1,000 families in rental accommodation on the list wanting affordable homes. And if we can help facilitate that, we will free up a lot of rental stock. And that will help create a more consistent supply of housing and hopefully stabilise the pricing in the rental markets and improve standards. Sorry, that was a bit of a long answer, but it's not an easy question. But those, I think, would help improve the situation drastically to get more young people into home ownership. LEAF, yes, and small. Well, I think LEAF, I mean, the change from just giving area payments to rewarding farmers and landowners for improved environmental standards is a really important step forward. But on top of that, we're introducing new rural initiative schemes to reward further innovation, and we need to put more money into that to encourage and keep small holdings. Thank you.
Okay. Well, one problem in terms of making houses available to younger people is if you don't have a proper immigration policy that puts more pressure on the land, then it's going to be harder to have land available for younger people. And there are I've actually stood in front of the planning committee to point out that there is a policy already in the island plan that is meant to prevent houses being taken out of the housing stock. I was arguing, please don't take this cottage in St Brelade out of housing stock and make it a guest cottage for a wealthy individual. But that didn't work. Because we just have to enforce the policies that actually protect our younger people, the actual aim to give them these homes. We need to create clearer areas and work in partnership with parish authorities to work out where are we going to build affordable housing. And we also need to encourage, and I would support all of this, we need to encourage more effective ways of having land ownership so that you can support younger people in terms of like shared equity and this sort of thing. And I believe we have to do a lot more of that in combination with a proper immigration policy that means that land doesn't keep going up and up and up and up. We have to stop that and make it reasonable. Leaf. Some people, well, actually I do know quite a few local farmers who are sceptical about leaf, so I'm not really going to go there. Long term, if we want to look after our reservoirs, we are going to have to use less fertilisers. We are going to have to go more organic. It's a plan that we're going to have to work with the community to ensure that we can achieve this. But long term, this is what we're going to do because as we grow, it's going to be more of a problem in terms of reservoirs and things.
Answering the second question first, our manifesto talks about our policies on regenerative farming and what can be done to tie the subsidy to environmentally friendly practices so that we can encourage those businesses to move away from using chemicals. One example that is being trialled in other countries is a carbon reward scheme where you tie the subsidy actually by getting the polluters to pay for it, and that actually encourages people to adopt more environmentally friendly practices from both angles, which I think is something that we should at least consider in Jersey. On housing, let's be frank about this, the housing market in Jersey is broken. We have a housing market that works in the interests of investors and not in the interests of people who just need a home. And I think that that's what we need to have in the forefront of our minds on this. Some have said that the solutions to this are in addressing supply and demand, and I'm afraid that that's actually quite naive. It's actually much more complicated than that, because Jersey has plenty of empty properties, which I think should be put back on the market and find ways of incentivising that to happen. The immigration issue is another one. You know, it doesn't matter if we build 500 new homes if we then have 1,000 net migration next year like we have for previous years, because that's something that, that just doesn't really solve the problem there. So I think that's what we need to do. We need to look at having a proper population policy. We need to look at getting those empty properties back on the market. And I think internally within that market, we need to look at better regulation so that people who are renting aren't being ripped off. And a lot of people are being ripped off in their rent because it's a market that works for investors and not people that need a home. If people have got more money in their pockets, they'll be better able to save up for that deposit so that they can get a house, and the issues of supply and demand will be addressed that way, not simply by building more homes. The answer is much more complicated than that.
In terms of housing, I've been an estate agent in the island for 43 years, and the problem is basically that affordable housing is given to young people, but on the resale it no longer becomes affordable housing. Kennevay Park here, Don Farm, all the estates in this area here were all bought on states loans. They were all bought, and if you look back in time at the prices they were bought at reasonable prices. But unfortunately, there's been no government control on the resale. So what happens is that you buy a flat. My parents bought a flat in Kennevay Park for £2,500, and that included a garage. I sold it for £205,000. The problem is on the resale. You're going to have to, if you are going to provide affordable housing to people, they are going to have to accept the fact that they are not going to make a giant profit. They want to make a giant profit because the next house down the line that they want to buy has also risen correspondingly. You're going to have to control the price of affordable housing so that when they buy it, they may be stuck with it and they are not going to walk away with a pot of gold. And that is the real problem. There's no control on when a person buys a property to what they can sell it for. And obviously everybody is in an open market. They have to sell their property for the best possible price. Farming, I'm afraid that I'm a little ignorant on farming, but to my mind, the government and farmers can sit down and talk about this problem together for the common good. Thank you.
Property speculators, the bane of Jersey's life, in my opinion. But the problem we have is that whatever we do to stop property speculators mustn't harm anybody who's just got an honest desire to improve their home because their family's grown or their lifestyle has changed. So, you know, homeowners who are just simply trying to make their home better shouldn't be punished because we're trying to stop property speculators. And that's a fine line. If anyone has any ideas out there, I'm happy to listen, but this point has to be made. So otherwise, what we'll find ourselves doing is stopping people developing any property for any reason, which would work against us. As far as LEAF is concerned and farmers, there's been some incredible strides around the world to make farmers less reliant on petrochemical-based fertilizers and pesticides, involving natural processes and mixing plants. And this is a trend I'd like to see and I'd like to encourage over here. The less reliance we have on the petrochemical based industry, the better as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you for the questions. I'll start with the second one first. Jackie will know, although I married a farmer's daughter, I'm certainly no expert on farming. Farmers should be rewarded for if they've got environmental gains on their farms, absolutely. We need to improve our soil quality. I know Glyn Mitchell's been knocking on about this for many, many years in St Brelard's around soil quality. But Jersey Raw's been a staple of Jersey. It's grown for such a long time, but it has damaged the soil. I think we need to stimulate and reward growers to be grow a more diverse range of crops. But that's about my limited farming expertise, so I'm going to move on to housing. Frank Luce is quite right. Unfortunately, by removing a lot of these small family houses and building multiple homes, that's been that in a way it's a good thing because it's actually they've been built in the built-up zone. But if we want to provide affordable housing, I think we need to look at more modular builds. I think we need to look at 3-bed homes that can be converted later on into 4-bed homes. They need to be lifelong homes. They need to remain in the market. They need to be capped at a certain price, possibly around £300,000. We also need to control the land prices when we buy the land. And I think there needs to be some work done, I think, with parish constables and around the parishes in identifying sites that are not damaging to the environment. I'm sure every parish could probably find some small sites that we could all put together to find those 500 homes I'm talking about. But there needs to be some controls over it, absolutely.
The price of homes are where they are because the government you have are asset-minded. They're corporate-minded. And, of course, they're the people that are leading it. Now, we've got Andium Homes here. Now, what Andium should be doing is building homes that members of the public on low incomes can rent, not for sale, to rent, so it stays in the public sector, and that rental must reflect the lower incomes. And that should be about £800 a month, in my opinion, for a two-bedroom flat. But you won't get that. You won't get an island that is cohesive, because you will not, or have not, made these people accountable. And until you make them accountable, you will not let people into the system with integrity. A home is not an asset, or a house is not an asset, it's a home. You must start there. If you want to build a mansion and you're very wealthy, you're very welcome, right? But you must look after everyone. And every time you make an unfair decision in government, you've won nothing. Rich people think they've won something, whether it's a tax benefit by capping or not paying GST, the richest on this island. Okay, they think they've won something. Oh no, 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 always cost. Crime, mental health, young children have an example of people who don't care. And then you say, oh, what's happening? No, I'm afraid you're going to have to dig a little bit more deeply and better leadership to get ourselves to come together. We must come together as a unit, but you've got to understand the processes. And there's nothing here, I'm afraid, other than me. I'm afraid that is a reality. You take control.
I'm not sure whether I ought to stand up now.
No, don't.
It is a very, very good question, and it is a question, if we're honest with ourselves, that as a community we fail to get to grips with. We use the term affordable to houses which cost £200,000, £300,000, £400,000. We first need to think about what is affordable. Now, I've got to say, unlike the previous speaker, Andy are doing a really good job. They are working with shared equity schemes, and they're giving hope to about 60 families. They've got a site that they hopefully are going to build for them. They've got other sites as well, and they're doing rental units as well. But it's why I'm proposing my Affordable Housing Commission, which will be a coming together of the community, developers, bankers, lawyers, planning, people who have been on the housing waiting list, so that we can come together and drive down the cost. Look at different types of construction, find sites, look at the planning restrictions, and if by the end of this year that commission can then make recommendations, I think we can start to make some progress. But there's some big questions we've got to ask ourselves. We've got to start with what's actually affordable to young families today. LEAF, I think, has been a really important venture, and I think that farmers are really excited about what it's going to mean for them into the future. But you're right, it's only the first stage. So the hemp trials that have been taking place, they have been grown and they've been very successful without any agrochemical inputs. So there's another option for us with crops. We know that the Action for Cleaner Water group have reduced fertiliser by between 15 and 20% last year. They're going to carry on and look to reduce nitrates as well. So there is progress being made, but again, there's more that can be done.
Young people owning their own home. That's only part of the situation, because I would propose a loan scheme, but it doesn't stop there. What about if the roof needs repairing or anything like that? These things cost money, and unfortunately the people that supply those services you can't pay them monthly. You've got to pay them in cash, because that's the way they work. I mean, as far as that is concerned, maybe support could be given and maybe something could be worked out. So this is a completely different ball of wax. And I mean, what Ian just said, linking the two on the commission, it would actually work. So that's something to be dealt with in the future. When it comes to farming and environment, first of all, reduction in pesticides, which unfortunately gets into the reservoirs over here, into the soil, and eventually goes to the beaches, and we have the green-eyed monster of Eddie Knowles seed lettuce. And basically, at the end of the day, if that could be reduced in some way, because unfortunately I think there was a case a little while back where pesticides were used illegally and they did get into the reservoirs over here. I think it was an American company, something to do with something or other. And so these have to be strictly viewed and maintained. And as far as anything is concerned, basically on the other side of farming, diversification. I mean, I've mentioned turning Jersey roll potatoes into crisps, and you all know about that. But obviously, growing other vegetables as well. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to look at different ways of actually bringing in revenue to this island. Thank you very much.
I'll start with the farmers first. Actually, at the RGA on Monday, somebody suggested to us that after Brexit, leaf apparently is a European standard. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but they were implying that that standard may well have to change with the UK leaving. I'll leave somebody else challenge on that one. I was actually, as part of my British-Irish staff, I used to work on a committee that looks at the impact of Brexit on ag and fish. So in January, I was in a very cold Scotland, actually, meeting with the National Farmers Union. And what they were showing us was technology that is linked in sort of satellite imaging of fields, controls how much fertiliser gets pumped into the ground in different spots. And therefore, the farmer has saved a fortune because he's using a lot less fertiliser, and obviously it's environmentally better. So those type of practices, and I think it was referred to at the Lamar Vineyards conference as well that we had earlier. Those type of technologies I think you should incentivise if we can, and if one needs to do that through some form of tax measure or whatever, I would be supportive of that. We heard about the soil improvements. Again, provided the test trials are supported and they produce the right evidence, that seems to be the right way to go. Housing. Right, I agree entirely with the point made by the lady raising the question. The obvious question, starting point, I think, is the Jersey Island Plan, because that is actually being reviewed this year, and it would seem to make sense that you put a policy that kind of addresses the issue being raised, and I would be very supportive of trying to do something along those lines. I brought 8 amendments to the last one, and most of them went through as well. There's actually a review of the housing market going on at the moment to understand these type of things, the impacts on it, and for example, in terms of the people doing the review, they suggest that another issue might be external buy-to-let and the impacts that's having on demand and supply and on prices. So there are some issues around that lot. I'm on a housing trust, as I said, so we are spending £12 million down at Troy Court rebuilding and adding units down there, and I also increased the JCG site by 60% for affordable housing. So that's the type of thing we can do. Thank you.
First of all, with regards to affordable housing, for young families, there is no such thing as affordable housing. With 3-bedroom houses starting at about £430,000, how on earth can a young family afford such a property? What is the price of a house? Well, it's 2 things, the price of the land and the cost of development. It is important that government starts to look at this very seriously. I know we've got a commission going on, that's another 12 months away, but really, government owns property and government also owns a development company. Why on earth can't government put some money into the young people, the young families of this island who are desperately looking for houses, rather than allowing external developers to do it and then trying to find ways around the price? With regards to farmers, there are many different types of ecological incentives. I'd like to look at another side of it, which is how do we actually improve every islander's quality of life and attract tourists to the island by incentivising farmers. A large number of hedgerows were ripped out to increase the size of the fields over the years. Government can incentivise farmers to replant them. A much more comprehensive programme of replanting trees. An incentive, perhaps, to farmers to grow cider apple trees again. We're seeing more and more of them coming on the island. Sowing wildflower seeds on inactive fields. These are all ecological sort of measures which will not only make the island a much nicer place for us to live, it will attract tourism again. And also, why can't we have a fully integrated cycle network around the island? The farmers work with government to give over bits of land to do that. That will help the population and become a tourist attraction. Thank you.
Thank you. To address the housing issue, the questioner spoke of small houses being enlarged by developers. But of course that works both ways as well, because there are families who need larger houses. You have to supply houses to suit all different categories of people. And of course the elephant in the room really is immigration. As long as we've got 800 people a year coming into the island, there's always going to be a problem with supply and demand, and that's always going to push the price up. I mean, in the 1960s you could buy a new 3-bed house for less than £5,000. Now, shared equity can help. Perhaps it's not used as much as it should be. Personally, I think it was a shame when the state's loan scheme was stopped some years ago. I'm sure that will be helpful today, and there doesn't seem to be any interest in taking it up again. Farming. What would I do to make farming more ecological? I think the trouble is there's not enough debate between farmers and the ecological groups, because I know something about farming, having lived on a farm most of my life. And there's a host of issues that come together here. I simply can't cover that in 1 minute. But you've got to remember that ecological usually means more expensive in one way or another. And farmers have been hanging on by their fingernails for years and years. The number of farms that exist on the island now is probably a 20th or a 30th of there used to be just 20 or 30 years ago. There are answers. People talk about pesticides. Yes, but the trouble is a lot of these pesticides have now been taken off the market. You have to deal with some of the bugs that are around, either herbicides or pesticides. So what you do now, you use a herbicide or a pesticide that isn't actually the right one for the job, and so you have to put it on in greater quantities. That is counterproductive. I think it was Deputy Bree spoke about trees. I planted 500 to replace the elm trees, so I think I've done a little bit there. Just to finish with one other thing that annoys me somewhat, 50 years I've spent growing crops and things like that. I'm not allowed to anymore, I'm not qualified.
Right, yes, and how much will 500 trees cost, I wonder? You know, the problem is the volume of immigrants is a great deal more than the actual building of houses. Over the last 4 years, we have built 1,261 houses, and we have had 4,200 immigrants. Andy are building lots, super, but we get a house of 4,000 square feet, which has been knocked down, and it's been replaced by a house of 12,000 square feet, which is a very large family. And so we need the island plan review of sites. We need to be very careful of garden grabbing. I think we've all seen that, where you knock down one house and you build 3 instead of it. Have a look at the one near Woodbine Corner. And the other problem is that accommodation is being squashed into town, and we need a proper review of sites in the island plan. And the other problem is that in the last assembly, they said that the rentals should be 90% of the market. But Andium and the trusts are the market. They've got the biggest number of houses, of social houses. Rubbish. Ecological, I want to see a better soil quality to give better yields. And the other crop I understand they're looking at for diversity is Camellia sinensis, which I discovered was actually tea. They're doing very well with it in Cornwall, so we'll have our tea industry.
Well, two very interesting questions, thank you. Firstly, with first-time buyer homes, it's very important that we retain a diversity in our housing stock, and of course families often grow, and so it's necessary for them to create more space, and the cost of moving can sometimes be prohibitive. Therefore, it's important for people to be able to extend their homes. But we have tried to address this issue by reducing stamp duty at certain levels, which has helped people to be able to move and reduce those costs of moving. Also, there are different home ownership schemes being addressed, like the proposed Andium development in St Peter, which was due to be for first-time buyers, and part of the deal is that they will always be first-time buyer homes, part owned by the parish, so that in perpetuity they would remain in that market. As I said, there's a diversity of different properties being built, and the States of Jersey Development Company actually at College Gardens are building some first-time buyer properties and social housing properties, as well as properties to buy on the private market. So we'll move on then to Mrs. Carroll's answer, and I think the medical officer of health in refusing to allow nitrate levels in our drinking water to exceed the 50 milligrams per unit level has actually done a great thing, because it's focused people's minds, and farmers particularly, in reducing the use of chemicals on our fields, and therefore we're seeing a reduction in nitrates. There's more to be done though, perhaps reducing rates on agricultural land to give farmers a payback for the work that they do in the broncage, and also for smaller growers, perhaps using Olio, which is an online food sharing resource. I can see that there would be a lot of potential to use that and expand it.
With regards to the housing question and developers taking over small family homes and building for profit, there's currently a review being carried out, a holistic review about affordable housing in Jersey, which will report to the next States Assembly. And hopefully that will help to inform what will be the new island plan in a couple of years. And I'd like to link the island plan closely with what is a housing policy, and for that to be resolved together, because we've got to recognise that at the moment, under the Housing Gateway, there's over 900 people on the waiting list on Band 5 to purchase an affordable home. And there's scarcity of land, and there's the issue of the population. And we've also created a situation of having a 90% rents policy, which completely reduces the ability for these people to put money aside, to actually have a deposit, to actually move into any form of affordability scheme. And that has a knock-on effect to the private sector as well. So huge issues, housing, and they do need to be dealt with. And I'd like to link it with the island plan, the housing policy, and Andium, the Housing Gateway. With regards to farmers, I'm not going to say that I'm experienced in farming personally, but I was on the Environment Scrutiny Panel, and we looked at water management plans. The LEAF accreditation is a great thing. However, what we've got to recognise is the farming industry, the viability of that industry, because of the high cost of living in the island, is very difficult. And we need to look at the subsidy issue that the government provides. And also, from speaking to farmers, they've advised talking about the agricultural loan system that the states used to have to assist them, and to break down barriers when they're trying to diversify their business in order to support their farming roles to assist in ecological movement. Thank you.
Just after the war, there was a housing shortage of around, funnily enough, 1,000 people. My grandfather built Troy Court at that time, and probably 20 similar blocks, both here and in Guernsey. And one of the things that happened there is that sites were designated so that they would be got on with. And then in the 70s, there was individual empowerment for housing, where the parish sold you a site and you actually went and built your own house, and the Treasury supplied the money under the state's loan system, which actually worked very well down here. For a while there were some houses that weren't quite finished, but it eventually got done very nicely. Now the other problem that we've got with housing is that a lot of the small builders have gone because of the user pays planning system. Now it's only big companies like Andium and others that are organised and funded extremely well that can take a planning application full, whereas I know of a small builder had his planning application turned down twice, which used up all the capital of a couple of $100,000 he made on previous sites, so he just left the island. And unless we get rid of that user pays system for planning, we won't get small builders providing us houses around the areas in a small way. We'll only get the big collective, which is managed by two companies. Thank you. Sorry about the farming.
Right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call the evening to a close now. Thank you all for having attended in such numbers, and I'm sure all the candidates appreciate it as well. And I'd like you to show your appreciation to them by giving them a round of applause.